Hi, welcome all to Off the Cuff. And today I do have Shailaja Dixit here with me. She is the Executive Director of Narika. Shailaja holds 10 plus years in the field of domestic violence advocacy, management, and community engagement. She began her work in this field uh, years ago as volunteer staff at Narika and is grateful to return in a leadership role. So, welcome, Shailaja.
Thank you, thank you. Always a pleasure to visit you.
Likewise, likewise. And about Narika, Narika was founded in 1992 by immigrant women who identified the need for culturally responsive and linguistically diverse domestic violence services in the Bay Area. Narika has helped thousands of individuals put abuse and violence behind them and build new lives for themselves. Narika's mission is to promote women's independence, economic empowerment, and well-being by helping domestic violence survivors with advocacy, support, and education. So, wonderful work, like most
Thank
of us
you.
know,
Thank
really.
you.
And so, talking about domestic abuse, a lot has changed in the Bay Area since Narika's inception in 1992. The demographics have changed, environment has changed, technology has changed, and a lot more immigrants coming up from Southeast Asia, especially India. So there are additional complexities for South Asian and immigrant women. Can you address these issues facing immigrant women and what Narika is doing to help women in abusive?
Thank you so much. So before I answer this, I do want to say that we always talk about women because that's the population we
Yes.
primarily see and
Yes.
who are calling our helplines. But I
Mhm.
do want to acknowledge that abuse impacts every gender. So we do have LGBTQ folks calling our helpline. We do have men calling our helpline.
Okay.
And anybody who's experiencing violence should know that
Hmm.
domestic violence will impact anybody regardless of gender. But my language becomes gendered in how I talk because primarily it's women who are calling
Yes.
Narika on our helplines.
Yeah.
And we also know that it takes women longer just because of the systemic gender biases to kind of recover and find resources and be able to process what's happening to them.
Hmm.
So that said, I think you've raised a really good point about how how our culture has evolved or stayed the same since Narika was born.
Yes.
So I will say a lot has still remained the same because we do see that the patterns of violence are the same. It's about intimate partner, somebody you trust, exerting control over you day after day in a pattern, and it's primarily aimed at exerting control over you. And it can happen in a variety of ways. Financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual abuse if you're not allowed to practice your faith. There's legal abuse if your immigrant status is held over you, or you're not allowed access to your papers. Especially a lot of the women who come in our community are coming on dependent visa.
Yes, traveling spouses,
Exactly.
no jobs.
Exactly. Or your training from home doesn't translate over here to having a professional certification. So for a variety of reasons, you are not able to access the resources and power you have and work over here. So there's legal abuse. Something that I think has evolved and is evolving is the technology around us and the abuse that can enable. So tech abuse,
Yes.
it's not something new, it's been there around, but I will say as technology progresses, tech abuse is definitely something that's on the rise, is becoming more sophisticated, especially we are in the Silicon Valley, the heart of innovation. So that's something that's really impacting, and it's a learning curve even for us as advocates to be able to understand what is happening and how do we help survivors kind of deal with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about tech abuse, you are so right. I read on your website only that 60% of it is by intimate partner or close relation.
Yes.
It's not like a random person is stalking you and all.
Yes.
So this is like staggering,
Yes.
And what does it entail and how are you?
So I will say that is what you pointed out about it being somebody that is actually so characteristic of most abuse. We are always worried about stranger danger, right?
Yes.
But mostly abuse can happen and happens from people we trust. whether you talk about, child sexual abuse, whether you talk about domestic violence, whether you talk about family violence, whether you talk about human trafficking, it's generally somebody who you have trusted, who's in your, circle, and your guards are down and there's a violation. So that is so important what you've pointed out. And the same with tech abuse, which is why it becomes easy, because it's somebody who has perhaps access to your devices, to your movements. So some of the things around tech abuse that you were saying, it happens in a variety of ways, and it happens to most survivors that we are working with in the Bay Area, especially because of the presence of Silicon Valley. So if you think about it, there's social media. Facebook is one of the platforms where a lot of folks are active, especially in our age groups. And that's where people can know about your movements, they can hack into your accounts, they can post false information about you. So that social media is its own thing, or they can post revenge porn about you, so that happens quite a bit. Then there is also the abuse that happens through devices. So your phone is tracked, your electronic car can be, if you have an electric car, like that can be tracked. People know your movements all around. There's spyware that can be put. Then people can also, somebody who wants to track and harass you, can track what you're doing on your laptops and computers. Your accounts can be hacked into, your history can be researched, your passwords can be violated. So if you're sharing your password with somebody, there is a high risk. And if you don't, then you have a higher risk, because then there's violence, because people want to know why you're drawing. The abuser wants to know why you're drawing that boundary. You're not allowed to draw the boundary that my password is private. So there's so many ways that it happens.
That's and it's a very gray line, I'll say, because sometimes you want to share it, but sometimes I think it can be a patterned control behavior. So you have to be careful if it's being that. Once in a while, here and there, and intimate partners, that can happen. So don't think.
But that's the confusing part, right? Because you think, is this love or is this control? Right? Because even as children, we're always sharing our boundaries, our in a family collective culture. Your passwords are shared. People don't knock on doors when they come in. So it's very hard to tell. Or your friends or your parents might say, we want to know all the time where you are. So that feels like love. Now when your partner starts saying, I want to know all the time where you are, is this control or is this love? Is the confusion that starts.
Confusing,
right? So I would say trust the red flag. There's nothing wrong in checking.
You will know.
Exactly. Trust the red flag. You will know why somebody wanting, and that's a real problem. So it becomes such a big problem to access resources.
Very true.
Right? How do you go somewhere to get, if your phone is tracked, if your movement is tracked, if your car is tracked? There are cases where there are cameras installed in the house, so that your movement is tracked. What are you doing? There is no privacy for you, basically.
But talking about resources, you talked about having women in tech help you, help Narika in a certain way.
So we want to start, we're in the process of it, and I'm happy to announce it actually first on on our talk right now. We want to start a campaign called Women in Tech Against Abuse. And I want to invite people, anybody listening to us today, to join us. I've seen a movement where there are a lot of women who reach out to us and say, we want to help you. They're professional women working in the tech field. They have resources, they're educated, they have professional skills. We want to be able to get them involved as volunteers and as supporters, but we want proper training to be given. So, come and join our 40-hour training. In fact, the next one we are trying to kind of streamline. It starts in October, so there's a 40-hour training that we are offering, that we offer twice a year to train folks to become part of, our trained advocate force, kind of. So I want to invite people, especially women in tech, who are interested in helping, come and train, so that you are 40-hour trained, which is state mandated for you to be able to work with survivors. And then there are so many ways you can give back. We need people who can help us deal with the tech abuse. Like, can you help people understand, like survivors understand how abuse is happening, how they can make their phones safe, what are the safe practices, right? Safety planning around. Or you can also help with like our financial literacy classes, if you have expertise in, say, resume, job building, but you got to get trained. You can't just walk in and work with the survivors. And we also have a component of, I think there's very little recognition of how much abuse is existing in the Silicon Valley. There is a perception that everybody is a model minority. Everyone's surprised. So I think the more people we have trained in those companies, in the organizations, the more education and organic, awareness can happen. So I would love to invite anybody who wants to join us for Women in Tech Against Abuse. Just reach out to us at narika@narika.org, and we can, we are just beginning to gather volunteers who are interested. So thank you for asking that.
No. I think it's a wonderful step forward, I'll say.
Thank you.
I read that 1 in 3 women and more women have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. So how is Narika trying to educate the community about domestic abuse, and how can people be more aware of the microaggressions? Like you said, there's a lot of gray areas where, and especially coming from a community like in Indian community, where everything is so collective, like she said, so we don't know where to
draw the boundaries.
Yes. So and also anything you talked about, I know exercise, how exercise can heal trauma, that a lot of, again, I'm going to women and men, but mostly women are down and out when they're going through a certain relationship like this. So a little bit about that.
Yes. And that's such a big question.
I know it.
2 दिन तो यहाँ बैठ सकते हैं to talk about it.
Yeah,
but I'll make it 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, I think the education that we do, of course we give out our helpline, we give out our, for those who need to reach out, but there is a large spectrum, as you're talking about, in our community who are kind of in this zone of either they have not yet identified whether what's happening to them, what is it that they're experiencing, or they're community bystanders who are watching something happen and they're not quite sure what is going on. So we are trying more and more to do education and outreach around what are red flags, what are the things that are making you stop and think, was that healthy? Am I safe? Is this normal? So when you have a question like that, how do you go someplace and so I want to say our helpline is not only because you are thinking, okay, this is abuse, I need help. It's also if you want to just talk about something and say, hey, I saw this, is this normal? You're not reporting anything, but if you have a red flag, honor it. If you feel something is wrong and koi keh raha hai, adjust kar lo, don't adjust kar lo. सोचो उसके बारे में, and ask. There are so many counselors, therapists, confidential helplines. You ask about it. So that's one thing for sure. Second, I think overall empowering ourselves, especially as women, around our health and wellness is important. And I think one thing we are doing even in our programs and asking people to do in the community is expand how you think about wellness. So wellness, we always think about food or therapy or medicine. But wellness is also, as you said, things we do practice daily, and it matters a lot because then it opens your thinking power. So are you exercising? Especially women, as we get into our menopause, I've just started. We're just being very honest, right? It's not like we were born and we're doing it all the time. I've heard it makes a difference to your mental health and capacity to think and meeting other people. Also, I think financial empowerment is wellness. So expand what we think about wellness. Wellness means all parts of you are feeling good and safe and healthy and growing. So is my body feeling like that? Are my finances feeling like that? Is my potential to be in the community feeling like that? Is my ability to exert my choices feeling like that? Is my mental health feeling? Everything. So wellness is not just dawai liya, what my body is doing. It's everything, including your community connections. Are you making connections with people who are healthy for you? Not everybody is healthy for you. So it comes down to what boundaries do I need to draw to keep myself safe, and what keeps me well, including finances. So we are doing a lot of push around economic empowerment, savings, not just income. Create your savings. What are you going to fall back on? Women we don't always think about that. I don't think about that.
Not
coming from any place.
Coming from my generation, where women weren't even allowed to talk about finances.
Yes.
Abhi tak bhi nahi hai,
Yes.
because they say, okay, what do you want to know
Yes.
about it? Especially
then-
when you're not
exactly.
working.
And so those
or even-
blueprints, what
yeah.
are we doing as parents?
Ha.
So what is it that we are teaching the next generation?
Very
You know,
true.
that is our prevention program actually. So yeah, it's such a spectrum.
Yes. Yeah, it's a spectrum and a lot to checklist, I'll say, you know.
Yes.
So think about it like
Yeah.
Shailaja is saying.
Yeah.
So,
And not only think about domestic violence, both people are thinking like,
yeah.
that traditional, you know, yes, there is physical violence, but control starts in so many ways.
Very true, very subtle.
And how
Yeah.
do we make ourselves empowered that control doesn't have a hook in us? That is the thing, to come at it from a place of wellness where I am strong enough to remove the hooks of control from in me.
I believe so. Yeah, and it is,
Yeah.
it's a journey. I have
It's
to
a
say.
journey.
It
It's
is
a
a journey, yeah. And I know time. The thing is that I have a lot of people who are wanting out from a relationship, and you know, just drifted apart, and they want to start anew, but they don't know where to start. What are the few steps and few resources that they can,
Yes.
use?
So that's a very, I want to come at it from a lot of compassion and respect and honor, because thinking about where you want to go with your relationship is a very tender, very raw moment, especially if you have been involved, you know, with our culture and the values we have where we want to be together. So I want to first start by saying, not everybody thinks about leaving. There may be so many things that happen that you are feeling you can't leave, but that doesn't mean you cannot be safe. You may not leave, but you can build your mental safety, your physical safety. So there are ways to go about it if you are not wanting to leave also. So call a helpline, whatever confidential domestic violence helpline you want, and talk to a counselor, even if to get emotional support.
Okay.
Right? So it is not कि मैं अगर छोड़ नहीं रही तो there is nothing else for me to do. That's not true. You could still do things to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
Now, if you're wanting to leave, then there are many things to think about, and that's where you need to talk to somebody to say, is it that you're leaving? Why are you leaving? That is, you know, is it abuse? Then that may need some more crisis intervention and immediate, you know, do you need emergency shelter? Do you need to, you know, get help getting out of that situation? We do all that. But there are also complications of child custody. There are complications of financial separation.
Yes.
There is the complication of where am I going to go literally physically to a home if I'm leaving? Am I staying or is the other person going? So I think the key things people can do is talk to a counselor that helps you make a plan. Get emotional support for yourself, because it's not, everybody starts thinking logistics, but you need mental health support, emotional support to think through all this. Get legal advice. That's really important. Know your rights. You gotta know your rights. You gotta know your rights in finances. You gotta know your rights in terms of California marriage laws. You gotta know your, you know, rights in terms of custody, and then make the plan. And everything doesn't have to be immediate unless you're in absolute immediate danger. So it's not कि आज अगर decision लिया तो कल हो जाना चाहिए. Things take time. Things take time. So, but knowing your rights.
And legal services are so expensive.
Very expensive.
That is a huge.
So there are some. It is, and that's where actually a lot of the abuse is also getting very sophisticated. A lot of our communities' battles are fought in the courts. You see, so it is a long, I will not say there's any magical solution. There are organizations that give some pro bono support. We, Narika, will definitely try to help to give legal consult. So that's something we try to give to most, at least an hour with a few lawyers that we work with, who can give you your rights. And then you take it from there.
Absolutely.
So you gotta make a financial checklist. So it's complicated, but there are some things you can do, and it starts with you getting to a place of safety, making your safety plan, knowing your rights, getting to know here are the things I have to do, and going through it one by one with emotional support. That is
what is the hotline number? Do you remember?
Yes, it's 1-800-215-7308. That's our helpline. It's a confidential helpline. It runs from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we just earlier this year expanded it to being 12 hours. We are thankful because we are able to reach people who are working this way. So 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. we are live Monday through Friday. It's 1-800-215-7308. And when anything you talk there remains confidential, and it's not reporting it to police, it's not reporting it to any authority. You can really just have a conversation.
Okay.
If you want to make a police report or get a restraining order, we can help you, but you don't have to.
Okay, yeah, you never know it.
Yeah.
Okay, so do use that number or go to narika.org and you अगर आपको अंग्रेजी भी नहीं आती है, कोई और दूसरी लैंग्वेजेस हैं, वो वेबसाइट है.
Yes,
I guess,
we
and
have
the speakers
advocates.
are also.
Yes. Our advocates speak multiple languages. We also have access to a language line. So if you don't speak English, it's not a problem.
हाँ, ठीक है. Coming to your podcast that you've started this year only, Safal, right?
Yes, it's Koshish.
Koshish, and
yes,
So,
yes.
Would you want to tell us
I
about?
would love
And that's
to
about
tell
parenting and teen communication,
Yes.
and it was lovely. I did listen to one or two.
Thank you. So thank you for asking, because I'm super excited about the podcast. So Narika has a prevention program called SAFAL, which means South Asian Parents Heal and Learn. So we do workshops through that, but we know parents can't always come for workshops. So what we did was we've created very short 20-minute podcasts that are offered by a therapist, Sangeeta Biswas, who helped us develop this curriculum, and Mulai Sampath, who is our prevention specialist. And then I'm the one facilitating it. It's 20 minutes, it's in English, but what it does is it takes core ideas like, what is teen dating violence? How do you draw a boundary? What is emotional regulation in parenting? How does the teen brain develop? So it takes these little core concepts, or what's a healthy apology and a healthy praise.
Yes.
So it takes all these concepts and talks and gives like scenarios. So we talk about it, but then we also say when it doesn't exist, तो ऐसा आपका interaction हो सकता है. But once you practice this tool, तो आपका interaction कैसे बदल जाएगा? So it's an actual example. There's a little bit of drama. We enjoy doing the drama part of it. And we also tackle things like, we had other guest speakers who were tackling things like, talking about sex to your teens or to your youth. So, or what's healthy masculinity?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, so just, I think I would invite everybody to go to our website and just have a listen to Koshish. It's just 20 minutes, 15 minutes, bite-sized. I think we're kind of proud of it.
No, it's a lovely tool, I have to say.
Thank you.
And for parents, like, is there healthy praise and healthy apology? We don't even know that. So that is amazing. But coming now to the fundraising part of it, you are having a gala to fundraise September 8th, and having an incredible guests there. Would you like to tell everything about that?
Yes, thank you for asking that too. All your questions are spot on today, can I say? So yes, this is our annual fundraising gala, and I want to emphasize that everything raised here goes to serving survivors. We have been, we are actually having increased number of survivors served year after year after year. It's not something that I'm ecstatic about. I mean, it's painful to see our community, but I'm glad we are giving resources. So this annual fundraiser matters a lot. It's significant in getting services to our survivors. So we are having our annual gala Tarang on September 8th at the Vente Vineyards in Livermore. And we are super excited that the iconic artist and social activist Shavana Azmi has agreed to be there in person and be our guest of honor. She has stood for social justice and causes like a rock, and I could not be more excited and grateful for her presence. So I invite everybody to please join us. Everything you give, raise, and to be in community, to hear people, hear about Narika's impact. There's wonderful food, there's always music at the end of it. So I think it's a very powerful evening. It's a very powerful gathering of people in our community saying we are not going to allow domestic violence to continue, and we are going to believe survivors, we're going to support survivors. So come and enjoy Shavana Azmi, come and enjoy the impact you can make. Buy your tickets today at our website. There's a web page dedicated to our gala.
I'm looking forward to it. And Shavana, like you said, is a so big on women rights and has been active
Yes.
in that.
I'm looking forward to hearing her being in conversation.
Absolutely, and Narika holds always such fabulous events, I have to say.
Thank you.
And one more thing now, I think we are running out of time. Yeah, go to narika.org and think about buying tickets. And also they have a transitional home, so that requires a lot of money, and like Shailaja is saying, unfortunately the the amount of people going through abuse and domestic violence has gone up.
Yes.
And
homelessness is
And
a very big
homelessness,
part of
yeah.
domestic violence.
yeah.
So a lot of people who are homeless are domestic violence survivors. Like
Okay.
there's a huge intersection that we
yeah.
don't realize.
Yes.
I mean, think about the classic image we have of a woman leaving with a suitcase.
Yeah.
When the woman leaves with a suitcase,
कहाँ जाती
कहाँ
है?
जा रही है वो?
Exactly.
Right? So yes, thank you for mentioning our transitional home. We opened our first one last year in 2023, and this year we are preparing now to open our second one, and that will also host 2 to 3 families. We are very, very grateful to our donors who have supported this opening, and really, families live rent free, and it really gives them survivors a chance to like rebuild in that 1 year that they're staying with us. So if you'd like to support that and know more about that, I'm very happy to talk to anybody. It's a very key project because we want to have that time and space and love and care to rebuild, not just crisis intervention, but actually rebuild the life. So
Absolutely, I really marvel at the passion you bring to what you're doing, and thank you for being so active, with community outreach and your social activism. And
thank you.
yeah, it's just amazing.
Well, thank you to you too. You always support us, which I really appreciate.
But you're doing the tough part, I'll say. So thank you all for listening to this interview, and to check out Narika, donate, volunteer, or
volunteer time, donate,
get more
relieve
information.
survivors, and just pass the helpline around.
Absolutely.
Pass the helpline around.
Absolutely.
So,
या मैं जाते जाते वो लिखा है कुछ लाइनें मैं थोड़ी दिमाग में आ रही थी when I prepped for the interview के and obviously the election coming up and so much being said about women rights and women bodies, so कि ऐसा कुछ है कि हक किसका है मेरे वजूद पर, मेरी सोच पर, मेरे शरीर पर, जो डालता है बेड़ियां मेरे पाँव में, मेरे परिवार का या फिर इस समाज का. हक किसका है मेरे वजूद पर, उसका जो रोज मेरे अस्तित्व की धज्जियां उड़ाता है, मेरे शरीर को ही नहीं मेरी मानसिकता को भी कमजोर कर जाता है. मैं औरत हूँ, कोई वस्तु नहीं, मुझ में भी गरूर है, गुस्सा है, जिद है, जागरूकता है, आत्मसम्मान है. बस एक दिन जी उठूंगी मैं, वस्तु नहीं वास्तव बनूंगी मैं. थैंक यू.
I got goosebumps. Thank you. इसके बाद और क्या बोले? Thank you.
Shosha is a creative Indian restaurant located in the heart of Silicon Valley. Shosha is a woman-owned business that serves traditional Indian flavors assimilated with molecular gastronomy techniques. The best Indian bar with happy hours in the Bay Area serves handcrafted drinks inspired by flavors from India with modern craft cocktails that are presented in unique ways. Shosha is a modern take on traditional Indian cuisine. We specialize in corporate luncheon, anniversary celebrations, birthday parties, and catering. Do check us out for a memorable modern Indian dining experience. Shosha is located at 141 South Murphy Avenue in Sunnyvale, California.